Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our meeting. This is the moment to have a launching of the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. It's an initiative that gathers the Committee of the Regions and several other European organizations that during this session we'll have the opportunity to hear, and also, and mainly, we have the honor and pleasure of welcoming some guests from Ukraine. Oleksiy CHERNYSHOV, Minister for Communities and Territories Development, he will be with us online. Vitali KLITSCHKO, the Mayor of Kyiv, is the President of the Association of Ukrainian Cities. He will be also with us online. Oleksandr MARKUSHYN, Mayor of Irpin, is here in person. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. And the representatives of the organizations, European organizations that are partners with us in this alliance. Mr. Jean-Luc Van Rees from AEBR, our former President Karl-Heinz Lamberts from AEBR, and Mrs. Valle Miguel Santiago, CPMR Vice President and Regional Minister for Enterprise, Employment and Universities of Murcia region, that will be with us online too. So I welcome all our guests, and I thank them for having accepted our invitation. I am honored to welcome you to attend the session on the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. The recent granting of candidate status to Ukraine, along with Moldova, marks one of the pillars where the relationship between the European Union and Ukraine is developed. The war unleashed death and devastation across Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians lost their homes, cities, and are counting damaged schools and hospitals. President Zelensky addressed the international community with a request to offer direct city-to-city and region-to-region partnership to Ukraine. And this request was echoed by our partners from the Ukrainian associations of local authorities. The European Committee of the Regions stepped forward with a proposal to create a pan-European alliance of cities and regions for the reconstruction of Ukraine. An alliance that would bring together all our main partners, associations and networks of local and regional politicians. An alliance that would ensure that all EU cities and regions speak with one voice within the European Commission's Ukraine reconstruction platform. An alliance that would help us avoid a duplication of efforts, and through its vast networks would offer specific local expertise upon the request of our Ukrainian partners. Besides the organizations that answer our call, and as I have already mentioned, I would like also to stress the importance of the presence here today with us of the President of CALRE, Monsieur Marcoux, regions with legislative powers, for the importance that this means of having political bodies with political will and powers expressing also their commitment to this organization, to this alliance. Let me conclude by saying that the alliance will remain open to any interested partner. So please join our efforts in reconstruction Ukraine and building a better future for Europe. Now I think we have Minister for Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine online. We'll have statements from their side. So I give the floor We'll have interpretation in Ukrainian. I think so. Just to, okay. 24th channel. And it is my pleasure to welcome from Ukraine, Oleksiy CHERNYSHOV.
Can you please turn on my camera?
I don't think that's possible from our side.
Well, okay, with your permission, I will start.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, and then we see what we can do with the video. So I'm sincerely grateful for this invitation and for the opportunity to speak on the 150th plenary session of the European Committee of the Regions. First of all, let me congratulate the newly elected President of the European Committee of the Regions, Mr. Vasco Oleksandr, and the first Vice President, ex-President, Mr. Apostolos Tzitzikostas, and thanks both CEMR leaders for the firm and continuous political and, which is more useful, practical support of Ukraine. We all think it is absolutely obvious that supporting Ukraine by the world's democracies is of great importance to us today. I want to thank the member states of the Committee of the Regions for strong support of Ukraine in the process of giving our country candidate status. This is a historical moment. That is the moment we will never forget. And I think for the next generation, the history has been done. It's a big way ahead of Ukraine to comply to the standards of the European Union and for the reforms to be provided, for the structural reforms and significant changes, which is ahead, and Ukraine is eager to perform it quite fast and possibly to surprise member states in the speed we can do it. Of course, the most important issue right now is to stop the war and have our Ukrainian victory in reality. So, in the conditions of the aggressions of Russian Federations, Ukrainian communities and Ukrainian regions have new challenges. And in order to overcome those obstacles to regional development, it is necessary to introduce new legal regulations, as well as to implement regional development programs and projects. It should be noted that even in the conditions of the full-scale war, our ministry, together with the solution of urgent problems and current challenges, continues to work on the implementation of the initiated territorial reform. Decentralization reform has been estimated and has been treated as one of the best Ukrainian reforms, and we all know that Ukraine is in desperate need for structural reforms. This reform, the second phase of this reform has been successfully finalized, and I thank you for the help and partnership in this program. In Ukraine, there is a National Council for the Recovery of Ukraine from the effects of the war, aimed at preparing a national strategy and accompanying action plan for the reconstruction of the country and set targets for Ukraine to be met in partnership with other countries and international organizations, including IFIs. Part of this plan will be officially presented at the International Ukraine Reform Conference in Lugano, which will happen very soon, July 4th and July 5th this year, and hopefully we'll see of some of current colleagues. It is important to mention that municipalities play a significant role during the process of preparing the draft National Recovery and Reconstruction Plan. The Working Group on Recovery, local self-government, heads of regional state administration, and the representative of 4 All-Ukrainian Association of Local Self-Government are actively involved. So this is the product, this is our joint product of collaborating between the central government and local authorities. I'm personally grateful to the leadership of our communities, which we call Gromadas, and to the Association of Local Self-Governments to the work and cooperation. But we should all understand that the war is currently going in our land and causing significant damages for civilians, including children. I understand that we finally see each other, which is...
That's true, Minister, that's true.
Which is a great moment, so we are becoming closer and closer. This is just 1 week of the candidate status.
Imagine where it ends, Minister. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So, the figures, the facts, Ukraine is constantly being devastated. The damages, destroys, and other things. I can tell you just one figure, If you take residential housing in Ukraine, and we take private houses, just private houses, we have 120,000 damaged or destroyed private houses in Ukraine. Incredible number, which is constantly growing. Another thing, multi-level apartment buildings, residential, it is more than 20,000. Incredible figures. They are in different stage of devastation. Not all of them are fully destroyed, of course, but 1/3 of them is fully destroyed, which is, again, a very big number. And this is everywhere, including the critical infrastructure, bridges, roads, central heating stations, electric stations, and other things. So, according to the preliminary estimates, as of June 13, the total amount of direct documented damages to the residential and non-residential real estate and other infrastructure amounted to more than 95 billion United States dollars. So that is the current situation on the ground. We highly welcome and value immediate response in support of President Zelensky's initiative voiced by ex-President Tsitsikostas together with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and EU Council President Charles Michel on local and regional cooperation between Ukraine and EU for Ukraine reconstruction. The idea of patronage of Ukrainian cities and Ukrainian region is very important and for sure is absolutely practical. Just today we have signed an agreement between Ile-de-France region in France and Kyiv region and Chernihiv region. We have successful cooperation between Mykolaiv region and Denmark and many, many others. I don't want to name everybody. Everybody is trying to take part in it. And that is very important for us. I would really looking forward for a continuation of this cooperation, for the sister city increasing program. I think that is the practical instrument. And me personally, I definitely meet with European mayors in order to motivate Ukrainian mayors to start this partnership, start this patronage. That is very important for all of us. So I believe that such partnerships can become a basis, a kind of basis also for the European integration of our country. And we do support the process of establishing this partnership. What is important? Our goal is victory, nothing more. We aim not just to restore destroyed or damaged territories, but will make every effort necessary to entirely transform Ukraine into a new European country. And this is not only a physical transformation. This transformation, of course, requires structural reforms, provision of rule of law, anti-corruption legislation, judicial reform, and many more. This is not only infrastructure. That is the change of Ukrainian environment that is currently happening very intensively. We welcome the creation of a new European alliance of cities and regions for the reconstruction of Ukraine. That is a great, significant step, and we look forward to the committee's support and fruitful cooperation with European region. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very happy that we find a solution to see each other and to hear each other. And I think we should go ahead like this. Thank you very much.
Well, we're the ones who thank you, Minister. We invite you to stay with us during this session. We have more speakers, but before proceeding, I would like to acknowledge the presence in this session of the Ukrainian ambassador in Brussels, Chentsov, that gives us the pleasure to be here today. And also to acknowledge the presence of the delegation that is led by the mayor of Irpin, and I think includes a former mayor of Irpin and our colleagues. Please. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed. It's my pleasure to give the floor to Vitali Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv. You have the floor, sir, for 5 minutes.
I'm as representative of President of City Association of Ukraine. I want to repeat and totally support the words what we listen right now from Minister Oleksiy CHERNYSHOV. It's actually infrastructure in Ukraine right now destroyed. It's destroyed economy. Right now it's a really difficult time, and I want to say thank you very much for everyone who support Ukraine in our fight for the future of our country. And also everyone in Europe have to understand a very important point. We defend right now not just our city, not just our country, not just our families. We defend right now in this senseless war every one of you, because this war not against just Ukraine, this war against the international law, this war against democracy, this war actually destroyed all international rules what we have before, and that's why we defend also the values. I hope the same values as have European country, and every one of you have to understand the reason of this senseless war. The reason because we want to be the part of European family, and Mr. Putin and Russia want to rebuild Soviet empire. We was in USSR and we don't want back to USSR. And we see our future as part of European family. This is the reason of this senseless war. It's everyone have to understand. And also, very important message to every one of you. We defend right now the old European continent is one of the biggest war after the Second World War in Europe and the world, and thousands and thousands of people already died, and we defending our rights to have to build modern European country with the name Ukraine. It's very important. Yes, of course, is this battle right now against one of the strongest army in the world is difficult for Ukraine, for Ukrainian soldier. It's huge challenge for our country, but we more than sure we win this war because we in our homeland. We always was peaceful country where live peaceful people. We never was aggressive to anyone. We right now defend our wish to be the part of modern Europe. And yes, of course, will be difficult, almost impossible to fighting against so huge and powerful neighbor as Russian Federation with one of the strongest army in the world. And that's why I want to say from myself as mayor of Kyiv and also as president of Association of Cities of Ukraine, thank you very much for every one of you for solidarity with Ukraine. For everyone, what are you doing for Ukraine? Take temporary refugees, give humanitarian help, give political, economical support. And also I want to say to our government of your countries, thank you for support with defensive, I want to say defensive weapon, because we defend our country. And situation is dramatic in many cities. In east of Ukraine, the city is totally destroyed. Thanks God, we have a lot of international journalists, and they immediately showed the whole world the pictures from Bucha, Irpin, Gostomel, and whole world shocked from these images. But we doesn't have so much international press in Mariupol. Mariupol actually totally destroyed. We doesn't have so much international press in Kharkiv, in other small cities, Cernyshev. The cities is totally destroyed. It's our answer for Russian Federation. It's our answer for our friends and our enemies. Successful Ukraine. We need success. Success not just in war, success, economical success. And we need successful all standards of life, because I told our main priority to build European country with European standards of life. And that's why we will be very happy and want to say thank you very much for everyone who helped Ukraine. And please continue to help Ukraine, because right now, from this success in this war, from success of Ukraine depend the future of European Union. Please don't forget, Ukraine, one largest country in Europe, and stability in one of the largest country in Europe is stability in the whole region. It's very important to do that, to support the peace in our land. And one more time, I want to say thank you very much for support Ukraine, and unity around Ukraine is key for peace in Europe, for peace in our homeland. Please continue to support Ukraine, and we'll be very happy to support our city, because right now is heating season. Right now we have to give municipalities give to service to every citizens of our homelands. It's very important to care about everyone of citizens of our cities and citizens of our countries. With your help, we can do that, definitely. And one more time, thank you very much. Deep appreciate for everyone who support Ukraine. Please keep supporting in the future, and I'm more than sure we defend democracy, we defend freedom, we defend Ukraine, and we defend Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
We're the ones who thank you, Mayor Klitschko, and we invite you to stay with us. During a few more moments, we have more speakers from the Alliance. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Mayor MARKUSHYN. He's from Irpin, and he will give his speech here in person. That includes, I think, a video. Mayor MARKUSHYN, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Distinguished Chair, distinguished participants and members of the Committee of the Region. This is the first time ever that I'm going to look in my notes, because it was easier for me to hold a machine gun and protect my country and my town than to be standing here and speaking to such a distinguished auditorium. The town of Irpin has always aspired to be a part of European community, and I am grateful for this opportunity to speak before you. It is difficult to talk about the horrors of war, but it was even harder to watch when every day when the Russian occupiers were razing our town to the ground, when they were destroying our infrastructure. And I wanted to show you a very short video about our Irpin, to show you what it looked like before the war and what the Russian occupiers have done to our beautiful European town. Please, can we roll the video?
Ще раз дякую за все.
Thank you once again for everything you're doing for Ukraine. And my special thanks for providing shelter to millions of people who were forced to flee from Ukraine. And our gratitude will be in our hearts forever. As a mayor, I want all of our residents to come back home to Irpin, so that in every corner of our town we can hear children laugh. And the more people return, the lighter will be the burden for the European partners in supporting our citizens in Europe. Irpin is the place that stopped the enemy. Irpin is the place, is the town that defended the capital of Ukraine. But Irpin paid an extremely high price for this victory in our town. More than 50% of our town was destroyed. 73% of the town were damaged. In the first 30 days after the start of the war, 50% of our residents have already come back, returned to Irpin. And this is why I'm going to ask you for the following. All of the kindergartens and schools in Irpin have been destroyed. The average cost of a rebuild, average cost of all of these facilities is about 1 million euros. Around 100 multi-level residential buildings have damage to the roof and can be reconstructed, rebuilt in 3 or 4 months. And the average cost of reconstruction is about 300,000 euros. And if every city which is represented in the Committee of the Regions will help to renovate one building in Irpin, then in 6 months we will have one fewer destroyed town in Ukraine. We already have positive results. We have an example. The city of Cascais, which is our twin town in Portugal, has already allocated 500,000 euros for the reconstruction of a kindergarten, for which we're extremely grateful. From all of the residents of Irpin, I am asking you for support for our town, where many people wanted to live and work. What I ask for is that you make Irpin a pilot project, which will showcase the reconstruction of Ukrainian towns and cities. Can you rally around our misfortune and give us a helping hand in this most difficult time of modern history of the world? So that the enemy will see and know that the democratic, civilized society helps each other and supports each other. Friends, thank you very much for your help and for your support.
Thank you, Mayor. Now we're going to proceed with the interventions of the organizations that are part of the alliance. We will start with AER, Mr. Jean-Luc Van Rees. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. The specificity of AER is that we are an assembly of regions for whole Europe. So we have a certain number of members already who are Ukrainian too. And actually, with the war happening now, we decided to open our assembly to all the other regions and cities of Ukraine too. Why? Well, it's quite simple. We want to engage a permanent discussion between the cities and regions of Ukraine and our members who are all over Europe. So that's actually the first aim we have, and since the war we did support many initiatives from our members from Austria, Belgium, France, Sweden, and so on, to help the regions and cities in Ukraine. What we do too is that we Next to the COR, European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine, we joined Cities for Cities initiative of the Council of Europe. We engaged in institutional consultation with the Council of Europe, the European Committee of Regions, and other partners. Of course, and I think this is very important, we promote the creation of an easy engagement mechanism between European municipalities and the Ukrainian counterparts, and being practical, I think, is here the most important thing. So what we do too is that we support, of course, the further European integration of Ukraine, and as well as access of Ukraine's local and regional authorities to the European networks. As I said, we have currently 8 members from Ukraine, and we hope to increase this just to enhance this direct way of working together. We have also a role in the capacity building and facilitating of the exchange of know-how between EU and Ukraine on an equal footing, for instance, and we held a conference on this. I will not step into details because we would go too far with this. Actually, we have a certain number of priorities and guiding principles in our engagement with Ukraine. The first one, of course, is facilitating the political dialogue between AER, regional members, Ukraine regions, and the EU institutions. The second is fostering and promoting the principles of multi-level governance, partnerships, and subsidiarity for a better reconstruction of Ukraine. Third thing is that AER has a very strong commitment to promoting local regional self-government, good governance and local democracy. And we had for this a position paper on democracy which could be very useful. And at last, we want to strengthen the cooperation with multi-stakeholders and multi-level partners for a better and faster recovery of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jean-Luc Van Rees is the Vice President for Interregional and Global Cooperation of the Assembly of European Regions. Now it is my honor and pleasure to give the floor to Karl-Heinz Lamberts. He is the President of the Association of European Border Regions. You have the floor, sir, for 3 minutes.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, auch die Arbeitsgemeinschaft.
President, the cooperation between the border regions obviously also condemns the attack on Ukraine against all international law. And obviously we are closely affected by the war. For example, I have somebody working for me whose husband was the victim of a bomb. The border regions in Ukraine and in the bordering countries are obviously at the forefront in terms of commitment. They have a lot of problems that they need to solve, and they do their best to contribute to hosting refugees and to make sure that goods are sent from the Western countries into Ukraine. It's going to be a big task when this war comes to an end, which I hope will be soon. It's going to be a major task to start rebuilding. And we can only rebuild if we all work together. And if we establish partnerships throughout Europe, between regions, between towns, so we can make sure that what was so arbitrarily destroyed can be rebuilt, so that it could become a living example of European solidarity. This is going to be something that takes time. It's not going to be done within a couple of months. And the border regions, again, are going to be very important. All the members of the Border Regions Association have said that they're prepared to contribute to make sure that partnerships are set up so that we can make progress and so that these huge challenges can be met. Here in the Committee of the Regions, we have excellent experience with alliance alliances in the past. I hope that this will help us to make progress here so that we can use this alliance to rebuild Ukraine, so that we can continue to work with the cooperation between regions and what we have in the UN as well. Because for many years now, we have partnerships to build things in Ukraine, and that work needs to be able to continue alongside the rebuilding. So there's a lot for us to do, and I hope we'll be able to shoulder this task.
With the President of the Conference of European Regional Legislative Assemblies, Mr. Jean-Claude Marcoux. You have the floor, sir, for 3 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chairman. First thing I should like to do is thank President Tikhanovskaz for the work that he has done during his mandate, given particularly difficult health and economic circumstances at the time. And also sincere congratulations to you for being elected President of the Committee of the Region. And I wish you all the very best for your success. Now, I'd also like to welcome the European Council decision on the 23rd of June giving Ukraine candidate status. This is an historic decision welcoming Ukraine into the European family. Since its foundation in 1997, following the Oviedo since 1997, CALRE has been working towards strengthening democracy in Europe. We very much welcome the decision to welcome Ukraine in this way. On the 24th of February, with the invasion by Russia, we adopted a resolution condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the strongest terms and expressed unreserved support for the Ukrainian people. On the 16th of March, the members of CALRE met in an extraordinary session with a view to having an exchange of views by experts about welcoming Ukrainian refugees into European regions and also about the candidacy of Ukraine. And a decision was adopted calling on institutions to come up with a cogent and effective answer to some of the issues involving Ukrainian refugees. So we support the Ukrainian people, and we have done since the first day of the invasion. We have shown our support by flying the Ukrainian flag. And then at the European Summit on Regions and Towns in Marseille, the same solidarity was shown under the aegis of the Committee of the Regions, and we recall that the future of Europe relies on the rule of law and democracy. These are values which represent the pillars of peace and prosperity. The guerre in Ukraine shows once again how important regions are, and the role of regions is very important in democracy. So to the Mayor of Kyiv and Irpin present today and all of the people in Ukraine, I would say this to them, the people who are on the front line against the attacker. Once the war is over, these will be the same people who will allow for Ukraine to be rebuilt and move towards joining the EU. Through the Alliance on Reconstruction of Ukraine that meets us today, that brings us here meeting today. And we hope that Ukrainian towns will also be able to support on the unconditional support of CALRE. It will provide such support, and we will continue to defend the values of democracy in Europe. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Now we go online to give the floor to the Vice President of the Conference of Peripheral and Maritime Regions of Europe, Valle Migueles Santiago. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Queridos colegas,
dear colleagues,
Now? You hear me?
No, we're hearing you, but not seeing you. I invite you to proceed like this. Now, see?
Okay. Thank you. Estimados colegas.
Dear colleagues, I'm speaking to you as a representative of the CPMR. The first thing I'd like to do is to say that we are very pleased to hear about the European Union decision to give Ukraine the status of candidate. The member regions of the CPMR fully support Ukraine and wish to show them solidarity. In March, our political bureau adopted a declaration condemning the Russian attack against Ukraine, and we expressed our support to the local and regional authorities in Ukraine, and we also support the territorial integrity of this country. At the moment, many of our regions are mobilized in providing a welcome and hosting Ukrainian refugees and helping them to integrate. Regions are channeling all their efforts for solidarity towards the citizens and other parties in Ukraine so that we can provide the indispensable humanitarian aid there. In Murcia, for example, in our region, we are providing refugees with our full attention, and we have adopted a multi-level governance approach so that we can involve the public, private sector and civil society organisations in welcoming them. Looking to the future, the regional and local authorities will play a key role in reconstruction efforts, and that is why we applaud this initiative to create the alliance we are talking about so that we can bring together our efforts at European level and provide support to local authorities so we can work in an effective way and avoid duplication of efforts. As a maritime organisation, the CPMR has the fate of the Black Sea very much in mind, and we support the Ukrainian regions which have been members of the CPMR. The destruction and blocking of Ukrainian ports is a disaster for Ukraine, the European Union and the world. European ports are trying, to the extent that that is possible, to get Ukrainian cereal out to the rest of the world. Our Ukrainian colleagues need our help so as to rebuild vital infrastructure, and we need to work with them in this process and the process of accession of their country by providing support to local and region administrations from the EU. Then another important question that we need to think about is how we can work together when the time comes to for Ukrainian refugees to go home, the people that we are currently hosting and welcoming in our countries, so that they can reintegrate in the best possible way. So we have the skills, we have the resolve to take action, and therefore the financial support for the initiative to cooperate amongst European regions and Ukrainian regions is going to help significantly in our efforts. To conclude, I'd like to reiterate our full support to our Ukrainian colleagues and reiterate the need for local and regional authorities to unite our efforts in the European Union and in Ukraine to defend the values of democracy and freedom. That is why we hope that this alliance will be a powerful catalyser to encourage support, and the CPMR and its member regions are prepared to contribute to its success. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for being with us. Before moving to the interventions from the floor, I would like to share with you that the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, although they don't have a representative here today with us, they are also part of the Alliance for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. Now I will give the floor to the members of COR. The first one is Mr. Olgierd Geblevich, President of Western Pomerania, You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear Ukrainian friends, on behalf of the EPP group in the COR, I can assure you that we firmly stand with you. And I can assure you that we, as the local and regional authorities, will continue exerting a pressure on our governments and EU to provide you with a military support and increase the sanctions to stop this senseless war. We have, in many our regions and cities, just like in my region in Poland, we have been hosting millions of your citizens forced to flee, and I can assure you that we will host them as long as it will be necessary. We know that the very massive international financial support is needed to rebuild your country, but we also, as a partner region, cities, offer you our know-how, best knowledge and expertise, and of course our friendship. That's why today's launch, the European Alliance of Regions and Cities for the Reconstruction of Ukraine, is an important step for our involvement in this process. Direct participation of local and regional authorities in Ukrainian Reconstruction platform, as well as relevant financing programs, must become the cornerstone of the EU reconstruction efforts. Last but not least, we also, of course, warmly welcome the decision on granting EU candidate status to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. But we must also be ready to provide our support on the path of reforms that lay ahead, particularly in area of local democracy, regional development, good governance and resilience. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you. I now give the floor to our colleague Thomas Schmidt for 2 minutes.
Ja, vielen Dank, Herr Präsident, liebe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guests and representatives from Ukraine. I too would like to promise you our supports, and in Western Saxony we've helped together with our neighbours, Poland and others. We've sent help with Bucha. We've helped you as well. We've worked with our 7 partnership countries. Bana and Irpin have taken contacts with us and we've been able to assist. But it's becoming increasingly clear that one thing is immediate aid, medicines and other things to stop suffering. That's important, but it is a huge task, as we've seen from the pictures. Obviously, at this stage, it's hard not to get emotional, but we've got to keep a clear head, and therefore building these alliances are very important. And I think all the initiators who started have done a good thing, because what we make available needs to be used in a targeted fashion. And in order for that to be done, we need to have a European strategy which can translate into real action. Only in this way can we make sure that what the European regions can offer can be used in a targeted fashion by our friends in Ukraine. So we need a clear concept, and therefore I welcome this alliance. I wish our guests from Ukraine the very best, and we'll stand with you in these difficult times.
Our colleague Kata Tuto has the floor for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much for the floor, Mr. President, dear mayors and dear ministers, dear colleagues. I am intervening on behalf of the Party of the European Socialist Group, but I am also Deputy Mayor of Budapest. Budapest being the capital of one of the neighboring countries, one of the countries who gave first aid, one of the cities who had a lot of women fleeing on their own, women with children, because for women war holds different dangers, and we don't talk about that so often. So we were there and we will stay. with you. As the group, the Party of European Socialists, we welcome the fast care or flexible assistance to territories initiative, which was presented yesterday by the European Commission, which will give maybe a faster access to by European funds to help those who can help. But of course, today is not about this. It's about reconstruction of Ukraine. So this is why the PES Group also brings its full support to the launching of the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. A central role will be played by the member of our group, Dario Nardella, who is the mayor of Florence and the president of Eurocities, who has been appointed rapporteur on the strategy for reconstruction in Ukraine with the objective to have the CEMR represented in the Ukraine reconstruction platform. But I have to express two concerns today. One, we were talking a lot about our green goals, about climate neutrality, about what our cities have to do. And of course, we all know that many of our cities and regions don't even have the budgets and capacities today for our European goals. But still, of course, everybody will do everything in their power to help rebuild. But we are facing also issues we've never seen before. Not just the COVID crisis, not just the energy crisis and inflation never seen before, lack of skilled staff in the building sector. So for the neighboring countries who could quickly help and go, we also see a big lack of not just financial resources, but also of, when we talk about supply chain disruptions, these are real things missing from all of our sectors. And of course, we also see that as we've seen this numbness, this fatigue in the COVID crisis, we start to feel this in our citizens, in what's happening in Ukraine. So our mission as leaders, our mission as mayors and leaders of cities and regions is to keep public opinion mobilized as much as we can. So this way, we can protect and defend Ukraine and the Ukrainians, not just mothers and children, but all of their citizens. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you. Our colleague Dainis Torlais has the floor for 3 minutes.
I will speak in Latvian. Dargie Ukraiņu draugi, kolēģi, es pievienojos savā un Renew Europe grupa.
Thank you. Well, I very much sign up to what's been said, and we also support Ukraine unconditionally in fighting against the attacker country, the aggressor. The European Union is to a certain extent responsible for having allowed this Russian attack, and we need to make the necessary commitments and shoulder our responsibilities in terms of reconstruction. We need to act in an efficient and speedy way. And the EU in this process can demonstrate that it has the ability to do this and to reaffirm its values. Now, recently from the EIB, I got conclusive information about the fact that the bank is prepared to finance such projects. So a procedure needs to be set up which can work efficiently. The local authorities in the EU countries who have already cooperated with Ukrainian local authorities can do this work quickly and effectively. We hope that the national governments in the EU, as well as EU people in Brussels, will understand the fact that reconstruction in Ukraine can't happen whilst Russia is continuing with its rape, murder, pillaging, and its attack against the Ukrainian people. And the Czech Republic in presidency of the EU will be more successful if it will be successful. It can understand the position of Ukraine rather than Mr. Putin, as Mr. Macron seems to think. Thankfully, at the G7, Mr. Macron has changed his position and denounced the Russian attack and expressed his firm support, and that includes military support to Ukraine. Thank you for that. The war in Ukraine can only finish if Ukraine wins. So we in the EU need to do all we can. We need to provide financial, humanitarian and military and indeed political support. It is shameful that the EU has allowed this war to take place in the EU, within Europe, and for having supported corrupt Russians and allowed the Russians to accumulate assets of rather shady origins in Europe, affecting our political and democratic systems in Europe. The time has come to stop pretending. We need to protect our values, our European values, defend liberty, freedom and justice and truth. And we should not attend the burial ceremony of these values. Russia has eliminated all possibilities of solving the situation through dialogue. And it is for this reason that we need to fight Russia. We need to rebuild Ukraine.
Thank you, President. Dear Minister, dear Mayors, dear members, war is at our doorstep. Every day we are flooded with images of horrifying scenes, be it on a TV screen, in the newspapers or via social media channels. We are listening to the testimonies of Ukrainian mayors, and we can see in our cities the influx of Ukrainian refugees. And go to eastern regions of Poland or Slovakia and you will see military equipment on the motorways. Go to the streets in Central Eastern Europe and you will hear women speaking Ukrainian to their children. Walk through the streets of Amsterdam or here in Brussels, you will see Ukrainian flags in people's windows displayed as a sign of their support for a country fighting for its freedom. I applaud the efforts of the Ukrainian people who heroically defend not only their country but also the entire Western world. It's our moral duty to support Ukraine in its struggle against the aggressor. I welcome last week's unanimous decision of the European Council to provide Ukraine with the status of a candidate country, and a long-awaited decision by Ukrainians who, please allow me to remind you, have been dealing with the armed conflict not since February this year, but since 2014. As local and regional politicians, we had very little, if any, impact on that decision of the European Council. Our strengths lie in the collective ability to mobilize local communities to offer humanitarian aid. In my municipality in the north of the Netherlands, we work closely with charity organizations, and thanks to this type of grassroots cooperation with one Christian NGO, we were able to provide Ukrainian families permanent accommodation in our region. Other local and regional politicians in the Committee of the Regions have been sending medical equipment or organizing summer camps for Ukrainian children in their municipalities. This practical help must continue and should remain a priority. I welcome today's launch of the European Alliance of Cities and Regions, but I appeal to everyone in this chamber to continue engaging in delivering concrete assistance for the people of Ukraine. Every little helps, and we should not underestimate the difference we can make. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Youngman. Now the floor go to our colleague Kobor for a statement. 2 minutes. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Dear colleagues, I am city councillor and a physicist from Hungary. As a physicist, I think about of my Chernobyl research work and of the excellent Ukrainian friends and colleagues whose work there under terrible conditions now. When we went from Kyiv to Chernobyl, we touched Irpin city too. So I know this part of the country, and it is absolutely shocking what I have seen now. I think about more than 800,000 Ukrainian refugees coming to Hungary. Those are welcome, and we told our authorities on municipalities, inclusive my city of Pécs, and all of the Hungarian people fulfill their human duty. Our group political group, the European Alliance, very much welcome the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. We wish to reaffirm of full support for the people of Ukraine in defending their country, respect for international law. In our Białystok Declaration from 6th May this year, we called to all representatives of local and regional authorities to speak with one voice, stop the war as soon as possible. Today's act shows that we can and we need to work together already now for best results. Nobody in Ukraine should be left behind. It is important to have the LRS playing the central role in the reconstruction project. We should go hand to hand with the reforms and decentralization and into developing a long-term strategy to support Ukraine's efforts to strengthening the resilience of its democratic institutions and economy. We are ready to listen to the real needs from Ukrainian municipalities. Thank you for being with us today. We will try to do our best to advise and to be part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to our colleague Dan Boyle. You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you, President. On behalf of the Greens Group in the COR, we welcome the launch of the Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. It's an initiative that runs parallel to the discussion we've had earlier today that was led by our colleague, the Mayor of Prague. As local and regional politicians, we are aware that huge efforts are needed when the war is ended, hopefully soon. We offer our expertise and technical assistance within our available resources, but it is clear that a joint effort, particularly in terms of financial support, must be provided by the international community. The reconstruction, as it happens, will need to be following the objective of building back better. That will be the time for green, sustainable, digital and resilient investments, in particular in the area of renewable energy and in the area of food security, with the Ukraine being a wheat basket, a bread basket for especially the developing world. And in these areas, we need to offer our every assistance. Thank you, President.
Thank you. Now we have interventions from the floor, from members, after the political groups. I give the floor to our member, Gary Whoop, for 1 minute. You have the floor.
Liebe Gäste, liebe
Guests, colleagues, the citizens of Berlin are doing a lot to support and help the victims of this war and are hosting refugees. The fact that we're thinking about the future of Ukraine is a very positive signal. And I think this alliance is going to give the necessary structure to this process, which is going to be a lengthy one. We need a platform in order to see what the needs are and to bring the needs into line with what's being offered. We need adapted programs. We need new resources. We need a framework for everybody, civil society, cities, private citizens. And we also have to be aware that Ukrainian cities will end up in a situation where they want to fix their own priorities and reconstruction plans. We need to look at this with modern eyes, and this is what we would like to contribute to the Alliance from Berlin. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Member Zingaretti. You have the floor for 1 minute.
Grazie.
Thank you, President. I am President Zingaretti from Rome. Now, we have worked with unity over recent months with clear goals in condemning actions and encouraging peace, and also in hosting. And we have this fourth fundamental pillar available to us today, or that we need to work on today, reconstruction. We need to work for a better present, and in our own region, in the capital, we are working on hosting people, hosting students in universities, providing healthcare for people who arrive, vaccination services, social support, and also help in finding work for the people who have come to our country in so many numbers. Now, the project today moves us towards the future, because when you talk about reconstruction, you are thinking about the future of Ukraine. It's very important that we make this link between us, our territories, regions, and people who are still being attacked by Russia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Member Harald Sonderegger for 1 minute.
Dear President, dear colleagues, on behalf of the President of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, Mr. Lynn Verbeek, and in my function as the President of the Chamber of Regions of the Congress, we are very happy about your initiative to launch the European Alliance of Cities and Regions. We can assure you that the Congress welcomes this initiative to establish the alliance. The Congress is also ready to join the alliance as an institutional partner, which will be a logical contribution and continuation of the support the Congress has been providing to Ukrainian cities and regions during the war, not least through the Cities for Cities platform, which we hope that will become part of the operational makeup of this alliance. Ukrainian local and regional authorities need our support as never before, as they continue to operate in horrendous conditions and being targeted for their key role in protecting their communities. In this regard, the Congress President condemned once again the continued abduction of local officials by Russian occupying forces, most recently the mayor of Kherson, and we will hope that this will come to an end and that he the President called today in a letter for his and other mayors' immediate release. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor goes to our colleague Isilda Gomes. You have the floor for 1 minute.
Muito obrigada, Sr. Presidente. Cumprimento a mesa e cumprimento especial.
Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate the panel, and I'd also like to congratulate the mayor of Irpin. We all know that the war in Ukraine is an issue for the whole of Europe and indeed for the world as a whole. So our objective, the objective of Europe, must be to reconstruct Ukraine. But as far as I'm concerned, the support and reconstruction should not just be a matter of rebuilding buildings and schools. It must be a matter of assisting Ukraine to rebuild social and values and democracy and freedom. We can help to ensure that Ukraine can more rapidly join Europe. Obviously, that's our objective, and we hope that very quickly we'll be able to start investing safely in Ukraine. Thank you.
Have any other requests from the floor? I think it's no longer possible to have a connection with Minister CHERNYSHOV and Mayor KLITSCHKO, but I ask Mayor MARKUSHYN if he wants to react to the interventions that were made from the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, everyone, for this support, for supporting our country, because our Ukraine is living through the most dramatic times in its history, and it is today the fate of Ukraine is being decided. Once again, I will repeat that Ukraine is fighting not only for its sovereignty, but also fighting for all democratic values of whole Europe. And today, as never before, we need to be united in one team. And the first task is, of course, the victory of our country, and the next one is the reconstruction, rebuild. Thank you very much for your assistance once again.
Thank you so much. I don't know if any of our members want to comment, our partners. There are two issues or two questions or aspects that I think are of the utmost importance so this alliance can properly work. The first one was already mentioned during this debate is the practical terms. How we can make it work for benefit and to fulfill our goals. But the other is to have as many people, as many organizations as we can to be partners of this alliance. So I have, you may call it a challenge or invitation for each one of our members here in the Committee of the Regions. What I invite you is to, once you go back to your countries, talk to your national organizations of mayors, of local authorities, of regions. Present them the alliance and invite them to join this alliance so it can have more strength and can fulfill its job and its goals. Now I officially declare launch the alliance, the European Alliance of Cities and Regions for the Reconstruction of Ukraine. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
President Marcoux.
See you tomorrow.
Now, dear colleagues,